It's been just a few weeks since the premiere of Star Trek Starfleet Academy, and I think it's safe to say that the show hasn't been well received, and that's putting it mildly. Most of the time, it doesn't even appear on the top 10 charts of its own streaming service, let alone any other charts. And as first exclusively reported right here on this channel, Paramount has also quietly removed the show's premiere episode from YouTube, which they had initially offered for free after a very poor reception. Shoutouts, by the way, to Yellow Flash, Ryan Cannell, Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, Marvin Montanero, and That Park Place for crediting or including my video in their own reports, something that I'm very grateful for. I am, however, much less excited about episode 4 of Starfleet Academy, which has been very difficult to review, much like the previous 3 episodes of the series, as it is not only extremely disrespectful towards longtime Star Trek fans like myself, even if I were to look at it more objectively as a standalone series unrelated to a once beloved franchise, Starfleet Academy is a complete disgrace and certainly one of the worst shows that I've ever encountered, especially if you consider that every episode of this show cost $10 million to make. Now, in this video, I'll go over the entire 4th episode with you while highlighting its biggest issues, but before we begin, at a time where mainstream media critics are disingenuously praising this show, please like and subscribe as it would really help support a more independent reviewer like myself.
Do it.
The episode starts off with Holly Hunter giving a captain's log, telling us that it's been 3 days since the Starfleet Academy, which also doubles as a spaceship, left Earth. And if you're wondering, why is the school also a spaceship that sometimes just flies around, and what happens to the War College when the ship flies around, or what do new recruits do if the school is flown away? Yeah, don't think about it. Holly Hunter then marvels at the stars while looking at the gases of the universe, which makes sense because her voice kind of sounds like somebody passing gas. Then we see the Doctor giving his students a lecture, and he opens by giving them a quote out of the Star Trek Next Generation episode called The Drumhead, which doesn't fit here at all, and he somehow also misquotes it because Alex Kurtzman and his writers couldn't even copy and paste the sentence correctly into their screenplay, and no, I'm not kidding. The Doctor then tells the cadets that speech and debate is not for the chicken which is dumb, cringe, out of character for the Doctor to say in general, and also not likely how teachers will address their students 1,000 years in the future, and when one of the students asks the Doctor why he's using bad language, he says it's because he's earned it.
What?
And when sensitive Klingon hears that there's going to be a debate, he has a panic attack because he's both moist and soft. Caleb, who inexplicably starts every sentence with words like dude and bro, then tells him that even though he's a sensitive Klingon, he should really step up his game, yo. Sensitive Klingon then tells Caleb that Klingons are only good at violence and bloodshed, and just as random douche weighs in, the Doctor interrupts them to say that on the USS Voyager, he had to argue for his own existence. Remember Voyager? Next, the Doctor sets up a lightning round of quick debates to determine who the best debater is, and after quickly defeating the likes of Random Douche and TikTok Girl, everybody realizes that Caleb is the best debater of all time. And then, in one final round, Caleb is pitted against sensitive Klingon, who has a panic attack. Again. It's funny how the Klingons were once known as loud, aggressive, confident, macho warrior types, and now they're made to look so weak and useless thanks to this character. And for those of you thinking, well, maybe he's considered an anomaly, and other Klingons are more lore accurate on this show, I suggest you hang on to your seats because things are going to get worse in this episode. Much, much worse. Caleb has lunch with sensitive Klingon, who is embarrassed after his poor debate performance. He asks Caleb how he became the best debater of all time, and Caleb tells him that it's the type of important survival skill people learn in prison, but I'm not sure that makes a whole lot of sense because without some additional context here, being really good at scholarly debates in prison sounds like it could actually do you more harm than good. And also, come to think of it, how is Caleb just the best at everything? In addition to his elite debating skills, he's also the best hacker of all time, the best athlete in the entire school, and he's good at combat too. Caleb then gives sensitive Klingon a slice of replicated pepperoni pizza, which he refuses to eat because he says the pepperoni didn't die in a fair fight, which really doesn't make any sense either. Caleb tells sensitive Klingon that he also used the replicator to create the Klingons' official warrior stew. Now, this isn't really a thing in canon because generally speaking, if you're a Klingon, you're a warrior, so there's no special stew for you, and if you're a Klingon and you're not a warrior, well, you could potentially be terminated by your own people if you know what I mean. We then learn that sensitive Klingon was raised by two fathers and a mother who are a throuple in a polyamorous relationship, because it totally makes sense that two male Klingons would be married to each other and a woman simultaneously. Oh, and they're also refugees because all Klingons are refugees now, for some reason. Now, if you're wondering why sensitive Klingon has three refugee parents that like to do naughty things to each other, one of the show's producers has recently explained that Starfleet Academy wanted to hold up a mirror to the world we live in today. But I don't understand that. What do you mean the world we live in today? How many marriages have you seen recently between two men and a woman who all live together as a threesome throuple while raising children? I mean, I assume that there's a few weirdos in Hollywood that live this way, but I don't think this would be common anywhere else, and it certainly doesn't fit with the Klingons' behavior based on actual franchise lore. But let's keep going. Caleb and sensitive Klingon talk about the Klingons' mythological figure Kahless and their former planet Kronos, which blew up or something, but for some reason, no actor on this show knows how to pronounce these names that are already well known within franchise lore.
This is Kronos 1.
You'd think that with a budget of $10 million per episode, Kurtzman could have bothered to at least do a basic Google search here, but perhaps he's just too busy in the real world right now, looking for dudes who enjoy being in polyamorous relationships, allegedly. In the most convenient development in the galaxy, just as the only Klingon at this academy is having trouble publicly speaking, he gets called into Holly Hunter's office, who tells him that a spaceship full of Klingon refugees malfunctioned, and since his parents were on board, their fate is unknown, which gives him flashbacks about his family. We also learn that the Klingons are now at odds with the Federation, and that they refuse any help from them, even if that puts them at risk of becoming extinct. Now, since this is a major change in status from what we know in franchise lore, it would be nice to learn more about this conflict, or what led to it, but who are we kidding here? Of course none of this is explained. What does seem to matter to the producers of this show, based on their own admission, is that a species that was once considered a patriarchal group of manly warriors has now been reduced to loser refugees that have joined the rainbow community for some reason. Anyhow, as cheesy telenovela-style violins play in the background and Holly Hunter offers sensitive Klingon some time to process what's happening, he says he doesn't need time and wants to go back to class. Then we have a flashback into what sensitive Klingon's life was like 16 months ago on some planet where he was a refugee living with his two fathers, his mother, and his brother. Sensitive Klingon is in the woods with his brother, who's supposed to teach him how to hunt, but instead his brother wants him to be seen or something. Later that day, one of the sensitive Klingon's fathers gives his brother a weapon and says that he'll give him one too just as soon as he becomes a warrior, and only at that point they'll also allow him to eat that ridiculous and nonsensical warrior's stew, which is, of course, not part of the lore. One of the sensitive Klingon's fathers is now upset because he discovers that instead of his brother teaching him how to be a warrior, he actually just gave him a special ball that played a recruitment message inviting people to join Starfleet Academy. I can only guess that nobody who writes on this show realizes that you have to actually apply to Starfleet Academy, and in theory, they're only supposed to recruit the best of the best. In any case, back in his own present day, sensitive Klingon sees people watching Space CNN reporting about the Klingons' refugee crisis. Hologram Girl, who's not a real person and contributes nothing to this show, offers sensitive Klingon emotional support, but he's like, nah, I'm good. The doctor now asks the cadets what topic they all want to debate in his class, and one of the cadets says that it would be irresponsible if they didn't talk about the crisis with the Klingons. And in a class where they could discuss anything at all, why is it so important to address an event that is happening right now and is still very much developing? Yeah, don't think about it. Since some people in the class start talking trash about Klingons, Caleb steps in to defend his Klingon friend, but sensitive Klingon is like, nah brah, I don't need no help from nobody. The doctor then worries that the Klingon topic may be too topical for this class, but sensitive Klingon tells him that he's cool with it because much like with this awful Starfleet Academy show, avoiding the problem won't make it disappear. And although I don't want to risk playing too much audio, I want to assure you that this actor playing a Klingon is probably one of the biggest miscasts I've ever seen on any show. The producers want him to sound serious and with a deep voice, but since this actor's natural voice sounds more like Steve Urkel, they keep drowning his voice in audio effects to try and manipulate it, and it sounds terrible. And if they really wanted their Klingon to have the type of presence Michael Dorn did as Worf, then they should have hired a guy with a real physical presence, a natural deep voice, and I hate to say it, they also needed a better actor here too. This guy keeps trying to do a Worf impression, but instead always talks like he's desperately looking for a bathroom. Anyhow, the Admiral, who likes to eat number 2, arrived to tell Holly Hunter that he still has no word what happened to sensitive Klingon's family, but that the Federation has identified a planet that has the same kind of atmosphere as Kronos, so all the Klingons can go there. The problem is, the Klingons don't want to go there because it would be taking charity from Starfleet, which they refuse. It also turns out that the Admiral is now a hologram, and even though nobody provides any explanation or context here, again, I can only assume that the Admiral is no longer physically on the ship, so he has to communicate via virtual Zoom call. The poopy Admiral then tells Holly Hunter that since she has a good relationship with the Klingons' oldest warlord, maybe she'd help get him on board with the Federation's plan to relocate all the Klingon refugees to this new planet. Holly Hunter is open to the idea of meeting the old Klingon leader, but says that the meeting has to be super secret so that it doesn't dishonor him in the eyes of his people. Meanwhile, Caleb and TikTok Girl offer to assist sensitive Klingon in his preparation for his debate, but he gets awfully feisty about it and rejects their offer. TikTok Girl then tells sensitive Klingon that he should reconsider because Caleb is the best debater of all time. And then Caleb tells him that he is a master debater, which I guess is a joke. That seems to upset sensitive Klingon, so he becomes all sensitive and leaves. But if you were itching for more flashbacks from his former life as a refugee, you're in luck, because we're about to get some more of those. Again! Sensitive Klingon sees his brother dying and suggests that he get a Federation tool that could possibly help him. But one of his fathers tells him, we don't use Federation tools to help us, which I don't think is really a thing in canon either, but the writers don't care, haven't researched it, and will just make up their own rules here. Again. Then, right before the sensitive Klingon's brother dies, he tells him, you are enough. Because Klingons apparently now use 2025 self-affirmation slogans to express emotions as if they're doing yoga in West Hollywood. Then, sensitive Klingon's dying brother gifts him with a necklace. Next, the old Klingon warlord, who I guess is an albino Klingon, shows up, and it turns out that back in the day, he and Holly Hunter used to do, naughty things together? Because that's all this show is. Relationships, romance, emotions, and people doing stuff in bedrooms. Holly Hunter tries to convince him to accept the charity of the Federation and take the planet and put his people there, but he says that tradition wouldn't allow it. That the only way they can take over a planet is if they do it through conquest. But couldn't the Federation just do nothing and let the old Klingon take over this planet on his own without their involvement? Yeah, don't think about it. Holly Hunter and the old Klingon then have some alcoholic beverages together and reminisce about how they were romantically involved years ago, and then he leaves. Sensitive Klingon is still trying to practice for his debate, and Caleb tries to help him. Again! But sensitive Klingon tells him that he doesn't need his help. Again! So Caleb tries to appeal to him more personally by saying, brah, you and I come from the same background. We both been through hard times, so we kind of like bros, yo. And then the sensitive Klingon is like, nah, son, you and I ain't bros, bro. So Caleb sees this as a diss, gets offended, and leaves as violins play in the background. Again. And then we're treated to more of sensitive Klingon's flashbacks as a refugee, and it turns out that after his brother's death, one of his fathers, I suppose the less cucky one out of the two, takes him to the woods to show him how to hunt so that he can be a warrior just like his brother was. But sensitive Klingon tells his father that he doesn't want to strike the bird because he's too soft and too moist to be a warrior, and that he prefers to go to Starfleet Academy, a place that he hasn't applied to and couldn't possibly know if they'd ever accept him to. I mean, based on what we see here on the show, it looks like they'll accept anybody, but he couldn't have known that in advance. Anyhow, the father tries to hit the bird himself, but he misses, so he gets upset, breaks the Starfleet recruitment ball, and leaves. Jump forward to the present, and we see sensitive Klingon trying to piece the broken ball together from back then, and I have to wonder, if he needed that ball in order to join Starfleet and the ball was broken years ago, how did he end up enlisting? Yeah, don't think about it. Random douche walks in and says that he can help sensitive Klingon overcome his fear of debating by embracing him and, caressing his hands? I can only guess that this is Alex Kurtzman's version of the male gaze. And while this very close interaction seems to be lifting sensitive Klingon's spirits, he ultimately prefers to be alone so that he can play with his own, equipment? Next, Holly Hunter shows up to the debate hungover because she got drunk with the old Klingon the night before. It's funny because I don't recall any other Star Trek captains casually showing up for work hungover, but I suppose since Holly Hunter is the best captain that ever lived, she can just do as she pleases. Now there's a montage of students debating. Random douche beats TikTok Girl, and hologram girl finally manages to win a debate, and now it's time for the debate between sensitive Klingon and Caleb, where they both have opposing views about how the Federation should handle the current crisis. Caleb thinks that the Federation should make the Klingons relocate to the new inhabitable planet using force, but sensitive Klingon argues that it's more important to respect Klingon tradition, and after the debate gets heated and personal, the Doctor stops it and dismisses them both. Sensitive Klingon then goes back to his room where he's visited by the insufferable Lieutenant Commander Thought, who reminds him that she comes from a mixed Jem'Hadar Klingon family, which again is not lore accurate, but let's not think about that now, and even though her family abandoned the Klingon ways, she will now be his Klingon mentor, and she hopes that she doesn't F it up. And yes, she says F it up, but if her family only followed the culture of Jem'Hadars, how can she be considered a Klingon mentor? Yeah, don't think about that either. And then, in yet another stupid flashback, sensitive Klingon tells Thought that after one of his fathers missed the bird, his family got on their spaceship and left him alone stranded on that planet. Now, this raises a lot of questions. First of all, if they have a spaceship, why are they living as refugees in some crappy tent where they're getting stabbed and killed? The other problem here is that Thought explains to sensitive Klingon that he misunderstood the whole situation, but she actually understands it much better than him. You see, according to her, his father couldn't have just missed the bird because of bad aim, so he must have missed the bird on purpose in order to set his son free so that he could join the Federation? Look, I didn't write this stupid show, okay? In any case, Thought's pep talk really helps sensitive Klingon gain confidence, and he puts his brother's necklace on and returns to the debate. But if he's back at the debate, why isn't Caleb back at the debate too? Like, who is he exactly debating now? Himself? Anyhow, he starts talking about Kronos and other Klingon mythology, and just like all the actors on the show, he mispronounces every term because neither he nor any of the writers have ever even bothered watching past Star Trek shows. He then comes up with a quote-unquote brilliant solution to the crisis, so he and Holly Hunter go to the bridge where in addition to being the school chancellor, she also moonlights as the ship's captain. Then they execute their big plan, which is to declare war on the Klingons, and then trick them into a battle that endangers both their Starfleet ship and the Klingons' ships too, but since Holly Hunter's old Klingon flame is on board, he basically plays along. But I ask again, if the Federation would have never shown up here, abandoned this planet, and then tipped off this guy so he and the Klingons could conquer it, wouldn't that have been the easier and safer solution? Anyhow, the Federation pretend to lose the battle, and the Klingons conquer the planet, and Holly Hunter's old boyfriend boards the ship and tells the sensitive Klingon that his parents are still alive, and then he gives him a weapon because he's proven that he's a true warrior, which is kind of odd because this sensitive Klingon is a complete that has done nothing to receive this honor, so it's more of a participation trophy than anything else. Caleb also has a trophy for being the best debater of all time. So he gives the sensitive Klingon his special warrior stew, which he's finally allowed to eat because he watched a battle from the bridge or something, and it also turns out that when the sensitive Klingon wasn't looking, Caleb and Random Douche put the Federation recruitment ball back together because they love balls. Sensitive Klingon then apologizes for how he's behaved toward Caleb, but it was mainly because Caleb reminded him of his brother, and then Caleb confesses that he misses his own mother sometimes, and that occasionally it makes him act like a jerk too, and then this awful episode ends. And in case it wasn't already clear, the main goal of this episode was to diminish the Klingons because by modern Hollywood standards, they're considered too darn toxic and problematic, so they are simply deconstructed, humiliated, and put in their place. Their men are no longer confident, macho, or full of bravado, they're not really aggressive or all that confrontational, they are simply Klingon men who no longer act like men, and at the same time, they're somehow also fond of other men, if that makes sense. And once again, it's pretty infuriating that Alex Kurtzman and his activist buddies get unlimited resources to make this show, and all they do is peddle their stupid agendas while taking a dump on a franchise that's been around for 60 years. A franchise that was built on the ideas of brilliant minds and visionary science fiction writers of the past, only to be vandalized by modern-day messaging and general incompetency. And beyond the identity politics, this show is just a bottom-of-the-barrel production, a show that gets absolutely nothing right. We keep hearing about how David Ellison plans to take over other IPs, but if Ellison wants to get any type of street cred with fans of Star Trek, a franchise that he already owns, he needs to step up and do something sooner rather than later. And if his actions in coming months don't include parting ways with Alex Kurtzman, I think Ellison will have very little credibility moving forward. In any case, if you want to support an independent reviewer like myself, who mind you, has suffered a great deal to bring you this review. Please subscribe, as it would really mean a lot to me. You can also find links to my previous Starfleet Academy reviews in the description below. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day!
I'm such an awesome guy. I make so many videos. And my friends are awesome too. They make so many videos. I'm such an awesome guy. I make so many videos. Now we are an awesome group, making live streams for you. I'm